Yep. Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. How
Hey
are you?
mate,
What's happening?
just living the dream.
Good man. How's the weather?
Yep.
Has it dumbed down a little bit weather-wise?
It has, yeah. This week's a little bit cloudy, a little bit rainy.
I'm noticing
Sorry to say.
a noticeable absence of sweat beating off your brow.
It's nice. It's 25 at the moment, so it's not as humid and boiling hot as it has been. But yeah, mate, still loving it up here.
Cool, man. Fantastic. Today, I think it would be really, really cool just to talk about those out there who are keen to start their health journey and or kind of elevate their health journey and just look at what the lowest hanging fruits are that I've found and you've found when coaching clients to be able to get the biggest bang for buck.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been thinking about this since, we were just discussing it off air. On my top three would be organization. That's the lowest hanging fruit and thing that I find that people are missing the most. They're often really busy in inverted commas. And what they lack is actually just a good disciplined organizational model.
Mhm.
And that gives them the freedom and the tools in with which to be able to establish the habits that they will need to continue with their health journey. Number two is sleep, prioritizing sleep, because that will give you that energy and the mental clarity to be able to do all of the above. And number three, I almost lost it, is understanding how hard you actually need to work in order to elicit results. So at the start, like it's just showing up. That's the hardest part. But as you get into it, I feel like what the missing link is understanding progressive overload and how you really need to push harder than you think you would in order to get where you want to go. I think particularly today we talk about recovery a lot and we talk about, understanding when to scale back. I actually think people need to understand how to scale up. Um,
Mm.
Much more so if you're wanting results, because the problem that people have is not uh, it's not scaling back. Like the problem that people have is scaling up in order to continue to elicit results. That's my take on it.
So let's just double click on that a little bit and get a little bit of an understanding of what you mean by that. So scaling up in order to elicit results.
Yeah, so initially when you start, you'll get what's called newbie gains, which basically means you can do anything you like to begin with, and you'll elicit change in your body because you have elicited change. Now, for the majority of people, they don't enjoy training. They never have, and they possibly never will. But what they lack is the ability to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And so, particularly the rhetoric that you have today is that, it's okay to work in, it's okay to scale back when you're feeling tired, it's okay to take a day off here and there. And that works really well once you've applied all the fundamentals and you've got to a point where you are actually pushing your body and working yourself really hard. And particularly as a parent who's been consistently sleep deprived for the last 9 years, I can tell you that you are capable of much, much more. And particularly then as a coach and a trainer, then when I say, and we spoke about this on the last podcast, that this idea of reps and sets and mechanical tension, and the idea that I can give you 10 reps, and I guarantee that if at the end of that 10 reps, no matter how hard you've been working, if I say give me two more, you'll be able to give me two more. And
A
so,
great, just to interject for a moment, a great example of that is when you ask somebody, and I'll just go through this with you for a second,
yeah,
grab your fist and squeeze it as hard as you can. Now squeeze it 10% more.
yeah. And you can elicit that 10% more at a bare minimum, right? And that's just
Exactly.
giving you a very basic, quick and rundown on how you really need to push yourself. And of course, there's the other side to it. Of course, you can push yourself too hard and you'll end up injured and taking 10 steps backwards. And that's the difference between science and art.
Mhm.
And there is a certain art form, but I feel like for most people, most of the time, it's scaling up, not down.
That's it. And we are speaking to the masses here. And in my personal experience of coaching people, and there are people out there that do have more of a tendency to go overboard, but I feel like they're in the minority of
Yeah.
coaching clients. So no, that's really good. Now, if we were to look at a general populace of people, and once again, from my own coaching experience, there are people here that want to be able to change the composition of their body, lose a bit of body fat, and be able to achieve the results more in that direction. If I were to kind of give you a prompt in that, would you have any tools that come to mind that you would, once again, lowest hanging fruit, uh, say would be the most achievable and move the needle the most there?
Yeah, weight loss to me is thermodynamics. It's energy in versus energy out. But I feel like this is such a misunderstood concept because people automatically think I've just got to eat less. And
Mm.
I can't do that. I can't eat that much less. You've got to understand two things. One, you put the weight on over a 10-year period, right? Which is only a 200 calorie a day surplus
Hmm.
every day. It's not a lot. So when I say eat less, it's not like you have to eat a lot less. It's just a little bit less.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest change is where you introduce movement on a daily basis, incidental and practice like exercise. So that's the first part of the low-hanging fruit when it comes to misunderstanding the calories in versus calories out. And then I think the second part is when I talk about eating less, it's not actually volume of food,
Mm.
right? Because people think, oh, I've actually got to eat less portion sizes, and sometimes that's the case, but mostly it's I've got to eat actually higher proportions of nutritiously dense food, which
Exactly.
tend to have lower caloric values. So I'm eating a lower calorically valued meal, but a much more nutritious meal in terms of value.
So
So yeah.
let's flesh that out a little bit, because a lot of people really, really struggle with that when it comes to the idea of saying, okay, we need to be able to put less calories into it or be in a calorie deficit or a slight calorie deficit, and people automatically move towards the extreme of starvation. Uh,
Sure.
Now, what would be an example, and let's just riff on a couple of examples of something that is a highly nutritious food, uh, and you are able to fill your plate with a greater amount of food, and it's going to be nutritiously dense, but it's going to be calorically less full, so to speak.
I'll give you a quick one, and then I'm keen to hear your take on this as
Sure.
well. I don't want to dictate this podcast entirely,
Yeah,
but
sure.
these are great questions. So I think that again, looking at the first cab off the rank, the lowest hanging fruit would be protein. Elevating the amount of protein that you're eating, automatically satiates you for a lot longer, which will reduce the amount of food that you would need to eat, and it is very nutritiously valuable for you, not just the protein, but also the micronutrients that you get from a lot of protein sources. Um, yeah, so that would be my number one. What about you?
Definitely protein. That's my go-to when coaching a lot of my online clients. My first question is, have you been actually consuming a sufficient amount of protein?
Yeah.
The next question I ask is, have you been eating and consuming a sufficient amount of fiber? Uh,
Yeah, okay, good one.
and the fibrous content of food makes such a big difference. You can use a simple example of having apples instead of apple juice.
Yes. Yeah, great
Uh,
example.
and so many people believe that eating, or should I say, drinking, still, and this is no, you know, slight or bag on anyone that believes this way. It's just a matter of education, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
you know
and
what you know.
yeah, you know what you know, and it really is just a matter of just saying, okay, so apple juice is not apples. Apple juice is a really small portion of apples, and what it doesn't have is the fibrous content of apples, which is going to help kind of uh, with the satiation component, but
Yeah,
also help with the nourishment and moving all other macronutrients through your system in a more kind of advantageous manner.
perfect. Yeah, I think that that's a really good example, and that's spot on.
There's a solid population out there that has that, and there are a number of other examples that we can kind of look at. But really, what I like to look at is overall calorie content, calorie kind of benchmark, and then protein and fiber. And then the fats and the carbohydrates kind of take care of themselves based on what your preference is. But if you do prefer to lean towards fats, that will be consumed a lot quicker
Yeah.
when it comes to calorie content.
Yeah, so fats are much higher in calories, and therefore are a bit of a dangerous one to prioritize because it can be really easy to have a salad that's got olive oil and feta in it with a couple of nuts thrown in for bang, and all of a sudden you're eating 1,000 calories per meal.
And
Uh,
it's a healthy meal as well, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. In terms of nutritious value, it's got tons of nutritious value, but it's just going to throw you out of a caloric deficit. And yeah, that would be a good. I think that's a good take home for people. And then also the um, the misunderstanding that you need to be in a caloric deficit all the time, particularly for women. I think it's entirely toxic to believe that you should be in a constant weight loss cycle on a month to month scheme program because of the menstrual cycle and often not being able to stick to the plan around that sort of luteal phase into your bleed because your body consumes more calories and it just isn't in a great state hormonally to initiate weight loss. So something that undulates where you go into maintenance for a period of time. But then even for men, I think long-term weight loss is toxic for mental health and both for physical health. So I think that you should always have periods where actually what you're looking to do is just maintain for a period of time, allow your body to create this new normal and then go again. I think it creates healthier relationships with food. It allows you a bit more flexibility with your diet. And over the sort of longer period, 12 months, 24 months for a lifetime, I think it's a more sustainable approach.
yeah, for me, I definitely find that to be a more advantageous and uh, an approach that kind of is sustainable.
How often would you program in a maintenance phase, and how much of a deficit do you recommend to be in?
Well, it depends once again what your goals are. For me personally, and I think you can look at maintenance phases in different ways. You can. I like to look at it like if you're looking to get into a calorie deficit. I like to look at it kind of in weekly blocks, and you
Yeah.
can you can achieve that by having, like, I personally like to have a day on the weekend where I just don't really think about what I'm eating a great deal. That doesn't mean I gorge completely, but I just have an opportunity to be able to have a few drinks on a Saturday and eat, like when I'm going out for dinner with another couple or a few friends, just not to think about it, not to be that guy at the restaurant where you're kind of counting what is going into your system. So,
But how do you manage that?
so the way I manage that is I just always think about calories in versus, sorry, I try to think about that by planning, going back and going full circle to what you were saying about planning your week. And I know you were more referring to the training aspects of it, but it also,
I was thinking about all of it. I diarize a to-do list, call it an action plan, and I account for every hour of every day and what it is that I'm going to need to do in that to achieve what I want to achieve.
and that sounds to a lot of people to be super type A, and it can be very restrictive. But what I've found is that actually offers a great deal of freedom.
Yeah,
If
that's what I find too.
and where that comes in with like eating out is I will look at a Saturday afternoon into an evening, and if I plan in my weekly schedule to be able to have a few drinks and go out for a pasta. Beautiful, like I went out last week for an amazing crab pasta with some friends. I was like, okay, cool. So that's my and I always use this as a way to kind of visualize this. That's me taking money out of the bank.
Yeah.
How am I going to deposit money into the bank before I spend it?
Yeah, you got to
Okay.
save more than you spend on a weight loss journey. And I think that's a really good analogy to be able to use is if you're going to have a day where you spend really big, I think either before or after, you've got to have a few days where you save your pennies.
Exactly. And it doesn't need to be an excessively restrictive way to go about it. You can either, you can either spend a couple of days, 2 or 3 days before, just being really kind of conscious of what is going into your system, or you can, kind of be pretty restrictive the day of. And kind of leading up to the evening that you're having it, and just kind of graze on I don't mind just grazing on salad and protein before I go out for that meal, because if I'm having a couple of eggs in the morning with some vegetables, a salad, and some protein for lunch, I'm good to go in the
Yeah,
evening.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you do that for the day before, day after, you're probably mitigating any of the weight loss damage that you'd be doing in that evening as well.
And it can be as simple as that for so many people that are entering into their weight loss journey. And this kind of leads me to the day after a blowout. I'd love to kind of talk to you about what your experience has been with that, and your experience with your clients. So many of my clients, and myself included in the past, who has had somewhat of a blowout, can then let their emotions take over, and have that dictate what happens for the days after and the week after, and then that can metabolize into a month after, and then all of a sudden you have a whole change of identity
You're
where
off you're off the wagon.
you're off the
Uh,
wagon. Yeah.
I think it's a simple solution, and I hate to keep on banging on the same drum, but it's just organization. The real reason that me or my clients fall off the wagon the day after and the day after that is because I haven't planned meals for the next day. There's nothing in the fridge. It's a Sunday. Let's take it as Saturday night as an example. It's a Sunday. I'm not feeling the best. There's not a lot in the fridge. If there is anything in the fridge, I've got to cook it as well. And like, I can't really be bothered to do that. So, like, you're just preparing your meals so that all I have to do is reheat them. And it's sort of super simple. Don't have comfort food in the house. Make it an effort to go out of the house to go get it. And stick that. There's an easy way to then stick to the plan. I think having the plan to be part of the blowout on the Saturday is great because it psychologically puts you in a much better mindset. So they had a study where they had two groups of people going off to bake cakes, and they told one group of people that they were baking a high calorie cake, and one group of people that they were baking a low calorie cake, and they were all on this restrictive diet program. It was actually a Michael McIntyre show, RIP. And what they found was that when they consumed the cake afterwards, the group that thought that they were still sticking to the plan, so the group that were on the low calorie cake and were able to still be within their restrictive diet plan, just had a little bit, and then they were satiated. That was fine. They were able to be within the confines of what they had planned. But the group that had the high calorie cake, I mean, and for clarification, they were both the same
Yeah.
calorie cakes that they were given. The group that had the high calorie cake demolished the whole thing because it was just like cracked glass might as well break the whole glass sort of thing. And that's a really, really common psychological trait for people. So if you can have it so that you're deliberately going off the plan, being on the plan, then I think psychologically it sets you up for success the next day. And then the next part is if you strategically have your meals planned and executed for you, it makes it much easier to just go. It's just easier for me just to have this meal rather than go out of my way to go get pizza and seek out comfort food.
Yeah, two great points. And I think that breaks down to two aspects when it comes to falling off the wagon, so to speak. And it's the practical play, and there's the emotional play.
Yeah,
So
sure.
are you practically understanding where this fits in your, are you practically understanding where this fits in your week and the context of your week? And also, so that's going to help you. And that also comes into the practicality of cooking your food, keeping your environment clean of foods that are going to tempt you if you do kind of have that day after.
Yeah.
But then also resting in the knowledge that it's all part of the plan. If I saved up $100 and I planned to go out for $100 meal or go to a show for $100, I'm back at square zero. I'm back
Yeah.
at equilibrium. So
Yeah.
knowing and resting in the knowledge that you actually have that, that's the emotional play. So I think it's important to have that kind of balance between both.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, where you've attacked both sides of the coin, which is that sort of physical and mental aspect, emotional side of eating and that weight loss journey. Another tool that I would like to use is to just realign yourself the next day with your purpose, why
Mm.
it is that you're doing the thing. So putting a tag on your mirror or your kitchen fridge just to remind you as to why it is that you're on a journey and why it is that you shouldn't seek out comfort food. So like I'm doing this so that I, don't get heart disease or I can be there for my kids in my elder age, like, and you just those little reminders. It's easy to forget when you're sort of hungover and down in the doldrums.
Yep, and that's that identity shift that can so easily be vulnerable in that day after. If you constantly remind yourself of the reason why you were doing this, you're in a certain identity framework, and then when you are vulnerable the next day, it's really easy for that to pivot and shift into your identity to shift into a woe is me identity framework, which can then be moving into a fuck it kind of framework.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think it's such an undervalued part of coaching and the client experience is to understand the psychological pitfalls and benefits of what it is that we're doing. So yeah,
Amazing. Yeah,
I agree.
this is good. Well, this is great. I think we should wrap up here. Nice little tidy bite of what our experience has been with coaching people who have just stepped into the health journey, but this is not exclusive to people who are just starting in their health journey. This is, for me personally, these are things that I battle with on a regular basis, and it's something that my clients battle with on a regular basis.
Likewise.
Cool. Let me just say, I think better word for that is navigate than battle, because it's life. It doesn't need to be a battle. It's just a dance.
Yeah, 100%. It can be a battle sometimes too.
As well. Good on you,
Yeah,
Dan.
I like it. Cheers,
All
brother.
right, brother. We'll speak
Take
soon.